Hi everyone, don't be afraid. I'm not bad-looking Jonathan Price. And this is still his channel, The Life of Price. But my name is Alexander. I'm from Russia, and today you will see some cool review of our show car Hammer H2, and it will be unusual review because. It's very comfortable on this car, but when I got Ford Focus, it was racing.
Yeah.
180 kilometers already was stupid speed.
Yes.
You cannot do anything, just watch to the road.
It's young.
Fillet.
Oh,
Real fillet with
fillet?
vegetables.
Okay. Looks like sausage patties. Cool.
Антон, а тебя можно на видео?
What do you think about it? Different experience?
Yes.
You like it?
Yeah, it was cool. Very good experience.
Less холодец, yes.
Yeah, less that. It was different. No, we're gonna go this way.
Спасибо, до свидания. Спасибо.
I want to get a picture with the lady. Yeah.
You too?
Yeah.
Hi everyone, don't be afraid. I'm not bad-looking Jonathan Price. And this is still his channel, The Life of Price. But my name is Alexander. I'm from Russia, and today you will see some cool review of our show car Hammer H2, and it will be unusual review because Jonathan, in fact, is here. He made 7,000 miles through the ocean to the Russia just to film a review with me.
That's right.
Not just because of this, but there is lots of things he did in the Russia, and I hope you like here.
Oh yeah.
So we made this review together. Jonathan will ask me questions, and I will try to answer them. The big problem is my English. It's very bad.
It's not very bad.
It's not.
It's pretty good.
It's not very bad all the time, but sometimes there is a words I cannot remember. So Jonathan maybe will help me, or our Dasha. She's here. Сними Дашу. And we got Jonathan's girlfriend Jessica came to Russia too. So we got so much respectable guests. It's a big honor for us. They visited us. So I think we can start. And I don't know what is agenda. I think you must just look for a car, ask some questions, and I will try to answer.
So I know my subscribers are going to have a lot of questions as well because I know if you're following me, you probably follow him as well because he has the largest YouTube channel subscribers ever. It's the largest one in the entire world
In car audio.
For car audio. So that's very remarkable there. And also, and on uploaded views is coming up a lot as well because he gets tons and tons of views every time he uploads content. He has a very loyal following. His subscribers love him a lot, so that says a lot. But I know a lot of my subscribers are going to be wondering what is going on inside of this Hummer H2 that he has here. So we'll start off with the basics of what year model is it?
Model?
Yeah, what year?
Year. It's 2007.
2007.
2007.
Model. So this is a 2007 Hummer. So first of all, I guess if you know me, I always like to start with the electrical first. So we need to know what kind of alternators he has on this and how many. So can you show us the
Yes, of
alternators?
course. There was a two Mechman, I don't know how
Yeah,
it's
Mechman?
Mechman.
Yeah, Mechman.
Mechman 370 amperes each, but one was broken not so long. They was working for about 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Every day, every time. It's this car made a huge distance from different competitions, and it's Artyom's. In fact, it's Artyom's all-day car.
Oh.
He's driving it every day, and he listen music. He crazy. He listen this music every day. So this is a good alternators, but 2 years is too much. This is 200 amperes,
Okay.
local manufacturing. It's temporary.
Okay.
So
And then,
unless we repair Mechman.
Mechman. Looks like he has some type of lithium batteries in here. Can you tell us about the wiring you have and also what type of batteries you're supplying your system with?
Yes, we got 90 ampere hours lithium batteries in the front and 770 ampere hours on each side, batteries on the back.
770?
Yes, in summary, it's more than 1,500 ampere hours at all. This car
1,500 amp hours of lithium power is a lot. It's a ton of power.
Yes, this car can make for about 160 1-2 decibels without engine start for about 1-2 hours.
Wow.
Only on the batteries. It's lithium is great batteries. Bad thing is you cannot find it, and it's very expensive.
Right.
But it's more 10 times
The
more powerful than AGM. Yes, there is a 4 pluses and 4 minuses, 0 gauges.
Okay.
Going to back batteries. Back batteries is placed here. It's closed right now.
Okay.
But if you saw our previous review, it's on the Life of Christ channel as well. You can watch without it. But I will upload some photos to this video so you can see it right now. But if you want to watch it on the video and me on Ushanka with balalaika, you definitely should watch our first review. I
Yes,
think
yes.
it was very funny.
Oh yeah, it was really good. So now that we know about the alternators, the wiring, and the battery supply, the next thing is going to be the amplifier. So we want to know what amps he's running for the subwoofers, and then what amps he's running on his door speakers and tweeters as well. So can you let us know what amps that you have on your subwoofers and how many?
For subwoofers, we can see it too, but I show you the photos or watch our the previous review. There is a Bridget 210Ks on the left side and 2 more Bridget on the right side. Summary power we saw on the measuring devices. Real power is 40 kilowatts.
40,000 watts. So that's a
For
lot of
40,000 watts, there was a lower impedance, not
Okay,
not
lower.
all the reuse.
Yeah.
All the use. All the use was for about 25 Ks
Okay.
kilowatts. So
Which impedance? Daily impedance and competition impedance.
each amplifier all day using 1 ohm each amplifier, and for a battle it's 0.25 ohms
Quarter ohm,
each.
okay. So when they are just driving around daily listening, they are listening to it at 1 ohm, which is very stable. It doesn't get hot or anything like that. And but when they go to compete with it, they wire it down to quarter ohm, which is very low ohm load. You don't want to run amps this low for daily use because it's really close to failure or a dead short. So you just do this. Some people do it for competition. I don't even wire mine down because I look for longevity, and it's really on the border of maybe something happening. But what are the brand of amps that you're?
All car made by Alphard brands.
Okay.
DB, Dave Bones, Machete, Gannibal. Everything in this car is Dave Bones or other Alphard brands. but head unit is Pioneer 99 alternators and batteries.
Yeah.
It's not Alphard brand,
Right, right.
but everything
What's
else,
the model number on the amplifier?
it's a DB 12 case.
Okay, okay.
In fact, it's a 10K monoblock, but it calls the 12 case.
Okay, so he has the DefBonce 12Ks in here for power on the subs. What model amps is it for the mid range, like your mids and highs?
We got under box
Mhm.
two OGO DevBonce 2500K.
Okay.
It's a very interesting device because it's mono amplifier, but it's working in full range. You
Okay.
can do great power, but for mid ranges,
Okay.
for example, we got two of it, and they working on front, back on the front doors. Each OGO working on each front door.
Okay.
We got some other amplifiers for back doors and tweeters. It placed under the front seats.
The DB
Place it here.
200.4s. Okay.
And from here, you can see most interesting thing is subwoofer box. Artyom, who was filming me, right now I'm filming by myself. It's a bandpass fourth order. So the back doors made for just AMMA, EMMA competitions, where they not just measuring SPL, they also measuring installation quality and sound quality, but outdoor. They listening car in
outside?
5-10 meters from the car. So we're making sound quality in the back.
Okay.
So this car can play inside, outside, everywhere. And in these competitions, second year last year and this year, we get champions of Russia. So
Two times, right?
2 times champions of Russia in two different classes. One class is just for SPL, and second class I told you is more difficult. They measuring quality of installation, measuring SPL with
Yes.
open doors, both open doors. It's very hard to
Create SPL
yes.
with open doors. Yeah.
And they listening sound quality. Very hard to compete because of many cars made for SPL doesn't have music speakers at all. So it's very difficult to make car can
There's so
compete
many things.
in different formats. But Artyom made it. Last year was more successful for us. In this year we got no so much time. But in last year we get in different formats for first places in last year on this car. But main thing on this car is in fact it's all-day car
Yeah.
that compete in any format and you can drive it, listen it, and you can show it to people. It's in fact it's a show car of our store and of DevBonce devices. It's very great, and we don't shine to show it to people. If there is someone didn't see this before, I think they will impressed.
If it'll
They already impressed.
Ты не умеешь открывать.
This is a 2.3 centimeters plexiglass.
Okay.
It's very tough, and it's a subwoofer, part of subwoofer box. So we can see how subwoofer works, and if you see, we made some subwoofers magnets in front.
Inverted and
Yes.
standard.
So you can see both and cons and voice coils, how it works.
Super awesome.
On the lows, you can see voice coil working.
Traveling, yeah.
Yes, it's very cool.
So these are, I see that these are the DB 415s. These are the DefBonce 415s. If you saw on my channel, I did a review of the DB 12s or the DB 12s subwoofer on there, and I free aired that subwoofer just on the ground with a 4,000 watt amp, and it just took it like it had no problems taking all that power. So very heavy duty subwoofers, and as you can see with all the championships that they're taking with this Hummer, they stand up to a lot of abuse, and very quality subwoofer with the DefBonce DB4 series right here. What is the ratio of the box?
1 to 2.
To the one,
One-
okay, in my Tahoe, it's a 3-to-1 ratio fourth order, which means this back section or the sealed section of the fourth order is 10 cubes. The front or the ported section is 3 times that big, so it's going to be 30 cubic feet inside of my ported section. That's why when you look into my box, it's such a big area there. And but with my understanding, having a 1-to-1 like this, it's able to get louder. Usually, it's just a little bit more peaky on the bandwidth. Do you have he played a lot of music for me the other day at the finals, and it seems to have a really nice bandwidth anyway.
Very
so,
flat.
Yeah, so he was playing. It seemed like 25 hertz, but when it got up to 50 hertz or so, it was like crushing my chest and choking me really bad.
Yeah.
I almost tapped out. So it's very loud. So it's 815s subwoofers.
4-inch coil, 15, yes,
Okay.
eight pieces. And I must say that it's amazing devices in high temperatures.
Yeah.
You get really hot from the box,
Right.
and you can see it inside. It's too hot, and
Yeah.
when you try to put your hands touch it, you cannot do it. It's
Right.
too hot, but no smell.
No smell. So they,
Yes, so these subwoofers worked for 2 years. Voice coils are
Perfect.
perfect, and there was a smell a few times, but there was a really
really hot.
maximum we saw in this car is it was 1 minute average. We did 164. It's average for 1 minute, and he
Wow.
did it for 1 minute. Then second measure, then third measure. It was on low impedance on 40 Ks. So it was a maximum we saw. Maximum SPL at all, not fixed in our garage. We saw already 166 in this car. It's peak.
Wow.
It's peak. 44 gears.
44 hertz.
44
wow, that's
hertz.
100.
It's peaked. On 25, there is 162.
At 25 hertz.
Yes, 166 on 44 and 162
At
on
25.
25. So it's
what do you-
kind of flat band.
This is really strong numbers. So at 44 hertz, he said it did 166 decibels even, and then at 25 hertz, he said it does 162. So that's for you to be in the 60s, 160 dB plus at 25 hertz is very strong. So he said that these speakers back here are just if you're wanting to, like, we're just hanging out and you just want a little bit of music back here, you'll turn these on. And as you can see, I may come back and like show you more of the install, but I mean it looks amazing. This install is just top notch, and that's with one of the formats that they compete in. Emma, he said they judge on the install as well, almost like sound quality judges. They'll judge on the actual install of it, whereas SPL competitions, they as long as it's loud, they don't really care what it looks like. But as you can see, this is a very nice install. I mean, everything is finished and it looks amazing. And as you can hear him saying the scores, it's very loud as well. So one other question that I have, we've already went over the subwoofers, the sub amps, the mids and the high amps. I guess we could touch on what kind of speakers they are and tweeters, what models.
This one is Alphard NM6. Called Hannibal. And this one is like you asked in our Trinaha.
Okay.
It's T34
Okay.
from Alphard.
Okay.
Great speakers
Very
and not expensive.
Okay.
So-
You said they're very budget friendly, so they're not expensive, but they sound really nice. What about the ones on the side doors?
These are D-Bones M18, M80,
Okay.
M80. And this is same speakers.
T34s.
T34s, yes.
Okay.
And this is wide range, low I don't know how it be. Something in the middle between mid basses and mid ranges.
Okay.
You can say full range speakers, but
Yeah.
it's not exactly word. So it's mid ranges, but it can make a great punch on the
Okay.
100 hertz, 160 hertz.
Okay. So he's saying that it works very well. Being a mid-range and a mid-bass is kind of like in the middle of those two, kind of a combination of the two. So it has a nice punch to it, but it's also able to get very loud just vocally as well. So one other question I know that I have is on this front door up here.
Yeah. I saw you change your mind when you said everything is finished in here. I think you must change your mind. It's super finished.
The question that I had was this panel right here. I saw, as you can see, all the other panels and everything are totally finished. But this one doesn't have any speakers in it. So I was like, why doesn't it have any speakers in it? And he said when competing, having this door panel here will help increase SPL a lot instead of having a bunch of speakers in here, which makes it where it can move a lot. So how many dB did you say this?
Just 1 dB for 1 dB and for one competition for finals. We demount usual all day
over
cover like left. So soon there will be speakers like on the left. It's temporary.
To increase SPL.
Yes, 1 dB is rising
That's
by
a
this.
lot.
But this, yes, of course. After 160,
Very hard.
every
161.
0.1 is very hard. So 1 dB is huge SPL. But it's not helping us
The
with
windshield.
our windshield. Yes.
So as you can see, it's so loud that it busts the windshield as well. To break a Hummer windshield is very difficult because they're so short and they're very stout. So in my Tahoe, I could break a windshield around 160, 161 decibels. It would blow out because the windshield is this wide.
Yeah.
But with that one being so short and stubby, if you will, it makes it very difficult, a lot more rigid, so it makes it very hard to break. He was at the competition the other day doing demos for long periods of time, and it wasn't too long after I got my demo, we were watching him play it some more, and it blew out.
It
the
broke
windshield.
while you were inside.
Not while I was inside, but
You was near.
yeah, I was right beside it. So yeah, so I mean, I think that's all the questions that I have about the Hummer. We went over all the equipment. We went over how it performs and how many championships they've gotten, how many trophies. A lot of the trophies, I know there's some that he's not even talking about, but very impressive vehicle. And like I said, I heard it the other day, and it is crushing, man. It almost, like, my chest was really tight.
It's hard to breathe.
And yeah, it was taking on certain frequencies, I would say probably 40 to 50 hertz. I couldn't swallow or breathe, so I was just hoping for a lower note to come in so I could actually take a breath. But it hurt my chest very, very bad. So I think we're gonna turn it on and play
course,
it
of course.
and show you what it does to the windshield. They said that they replace windshields. They have other demo vehicles as well, so they replace windshields all the time. But luckily over here, they said that the windshields are a lot cheaper than
We love broken windshields.
yeah, and they said that they're a lot cheaper here than they are in the United States. So something like for my Tahoe, where it costs $300 or $400, it would be about like $100.
Less than $100 in here, but it's not original. Original windshield it's for about 500
Yeah.
in Russia.
Right, so they're able to replace it a lot cheaper. So it makes for a good show when they go to the show and show all the people how loud it is. And
In fact, it happens one time in a year on finals.
Oh, really?
We don't broke it through the year,
Oh.
all year. Yes, it can be a little scratch on it, but but on the finals, on some frequencies, it blows in 1 second.
Wow.
Interior is very clean too.
It's-
We made not natural but laser in here.
Mhm.
Uh,
Oh yeah, so it has a green pinstripe. I mean green.
green
thread.
pinstripe. Yes, a roof
So the roof
this.
has been modified too, as you can see. It's very solid, and it's formed to the box right here and over here as well. So it makes it where everything is really able to be pressurized. It's I mean, it's a very nice install. I can't say enough about it. The doors look amazing. There's no. I'd like to get some more footage of the doors because they look so good. It's a very good install as well. So you did a good job on.
Yes,
doing
but
this.
to be honest, we must say thanks to Artyom. He made this car. Not in case your subscribers will think me is the guy.
Yeah, so he didn't do the
I
install.
gave him money.
Yeah, so he
Yes,
didn't do the
I
install.
like to
Almost-
I like to listen it, but Artyom can make such installs
Makes
by
sense.
by his own with 2 or 3 helpers. He made this car.
So basically, like he has Artum.
Artyom, then.
Artum, he does the installs for him, and it's almost like James Taylor doing the installs on my Tahoe. He can have a vision, and he likes to hear music, but he's very busy with his business, so he really doesn't have too much time to do something really big like this. It would take a lot of time, so he has him do it for him, and he's done an outstanding job, just like James Taylor does with mine. So the other question that I have is why the 2 head units?
One is all day usual. You can listen music on it, and it's for SPL. You can rule the system from outside.
Okay.
When classes rules, class rules restrict to stay inside the car.
Right.
Like DB drag, you can't stay in the car for above 150 decibels.
Yeah.
Yes, you must stay there. So in fact, this is a remote.
Okay. This one's usually not here. They just put it here to use at finals because they can't sit in the vehicle while they're competing, which is super cool. It's almost like a big remote, so they're able to play it from
Big
outside.
and expensive remote.
Yeah, big and expensive. So you have a couple of voltmeters right here.
This one for alternators and both sides lithium. It's his normal voltage. Instead of 12.6, 12.8 on AGM or usual batteries.
Alright, so you automatically have a 1 volt increase with him using these lithium batteries, so that's good as well. What are these right here?
This is a remote for lights in the box.
Okay.
You can see back, and it got RGB. We can choose any color, red, white, or some flashing.
Yeah.
And the remotes for amplifiers, for monos, for front doors, back doors. You can choose color.
Okay.
Same you saw in the back.
So you can see, since it has a plexiglass window on the back, you can see through the back with the different colors changing at night. It would look really cool to be able to see all that. So I guess now we know everything about the vehicle. So we need to hear it. I'm about to get on an airplane to start flying back to the United States, so I don't want to be covered with glass and get glass in my shirt, maybe in my eyes. So we'll just video from the outside or away from it a little bit. But you'll see I have videos when I got a demo of it at the show of me being inside of the truck, and it was very, very painful. But we'll get some really good video of the windshield like flexing really good now. So
If you don't believe Jonathan, I will say you, he's not be afraid to stay in here. He listened already this Hammer yesterday on the finals, but we got the windshield broken, so
Yeah, you can see the glass
there can be
everywhere.
a little piece of glasses, so it's not smart.
Not
Да.
smart to
Give my moolah.
It's hard to breathe when high frequencies.
Up all my money, you didn't get the surprise. I'm on your favorite hustler, about to make this career. Y'all asking when the album dropping, this is clear. Since you think I'm playing with it, I'ma put it in gear. Got this shit on all you niggas, put your back in the Your favorite hustler, about to make this career. Y'all asking when the album dropping, this is clear. Since you think I'm playing